What's up, everyone? I'm the Kaiju no Comic here at Fan Expo Denver 2022 with
Tim Jacobus.
And for people who might not know who you are you and what do you do?
I'm Tim Jacobus. I am best known for being the Goosebumps illustrator, the original Goosebumps illustrator. Started doing Goosebumps back in 1992, so this is our 30th anniversary this year. So that is my claim to fame, although I've done more covers that weren't Goosebumps than are Goosebumps.
So you started out wanting to design album covers, correct?
Yes, because when I was in high school, I graduated in 1977. Albums were the thing that, everybody had massive collections, and you'd go over somebody's house and you'd put the album on and you'd sit there and we studied the album covers and the liner notes. But album cover art was the premier gallery of the day, and that's where you got to see who the really cool artists were. And it was just that sitting on your couch as a high school kid going, yeah, I want to do that. I'd love for my art to do that.
And did you go to school further for this, or did you just self-teach yourself?
What actually started my art career was I was in high school. I had lots of credits. I was going to go to one of the colleges in New Jersey and just do business. And I liked art, but I didn't know really how to apply it. And because I had my senior year, my schedule was not full. I decided to take additional art classes at another school, at a vocational school. And that was my first dip into commercial art. I was learning how to oil paint in high school and talk about, famous artists, but this was functional. This is how you put out a magazine. This is a stack camera. This is black and white, and I was hooked. And so I had to go home and tell my dad, I don't want to go to college, I want to go to art school. And that didn't fly well. But the man who was my teacher at the vocational art school, Frank Neubauer, I told him my dad wasn't thrilled and I probably wasn't going to go. He took it upon himself to call my dad, meet him at a local tavern. They had a couple beers, and he told my dad that I had potential and that this was a real career. My dad came home that night and he said, okay, if Frank says this is cool, then we're going to do this. So, yeah, Frank Neubauer, big hugs to Frank.
So he's basically the reason you got into this career.
That could have been the quick off-ramp long before we got started.
And now everything you do is painting, correct?
The original Goosebumps covers, yes, were all painted because, again, first cover in '92, digital art was in its infancy, and it wasn't for the everyday user. You could see digital art when you had to go to a company and all the machines were still in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And again, that's how I was trained at art school, all traditional. So the original Goosebumps illustrations were 20 inches by 20 inches. They were acrylic paint, and it was a combination of brush and airbrush. And it was the use of airbrush that gave it that polished, smooth look, and it wasn't dominant. I would say it was 80% regular brush and 20% airbrush.
That's really cool, because one thing I noticed, because when I learned that you did this all with paints, I'm like, whoa, I can't really see the brush strokes in there. Because I went to college for a Bachelor of Fine Arts, and one of the projects we had to do was we had to do ink and paint.
Yes.
And I thought I did better ink because I liked the details, whereas painting, I'm like, man, you can see every brush stroke I put on there. And my teacher gave me an A on the painting and a B+ on the ink.
There you go.
And I'm like, why did it? But the ink one's better. He's like, no, your painting one is excellent. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, step back and look at it. If you look at it closely, what you're doing, you're gonna see everything. If you step back, and I'm just like, wow. Okay, I thought it looked messy because you could see the paint strokes. Because I see all these other pieces that are painted, and you don't see any of that unless it was intentional.
Yeah, and that was, again, I was taught by older gentlemen, women, ladies and gentlemen at art school who were very traditional, and big broad brush strokes was hammered into your head, and I was that guy who got in and got real tight and was always this close to his art, and They used to call, they used to just, you gotta lighten up, same thing, step back, because it will all come together. Your human eye will fill it all in. But, and they didn't know much about airbrush, and they were like, you can use it on this project, but can't use it on this project. And the reason I got into airbrush was, again, back in the 70s, painting on fans and motorcycles and all that stuff. That was a big deal. And I had a friend who owned a body shop, and I would do art on gas tanks, and and that was the only way to do it, because you always wanted it to be super smooth. But I did add brushwork to it, and that kind of set my stuff off. So yeah, it was just, these were tools that were available. I thought they were cool. We just started messing with it, and it became its own thing.
And now so you ended up landing a job at Scholastic. How did you get that?
So Scholastic wasn't the first place I got a book cover. The first book covers I did was for a company called DAW Books, D-A-W, and it stands for Donald A. Walheim. And he was a big-time science fiction guy, pioneer. And when I met him, he was maybe in his 80s, and he was not a friendly dude. He was gruff, but it was cool, because I played sports. I had football coaches yelling at me my whole life. My dad could lay into me from time to time, so it kind of worked for me. So he was very gruff, and he gave me my first cover, and that was the key, because no one's going to give you a cover unless you've proven that you can execute, but you can't execute until it's the catch-22. And I had that. Once I got that first one, I could go down the street and say, Donald gave me a job, and how about you?
That's nice. And you did a cover for a re-release of The Invisible Man, H.G. Wells, correct?
Yes. Yeah, that was so there was a short window when we were working where I'm not sure who the publisher was. I don't think it was Scholastic. I'll think about it, maybe I'll remember. But they were re-releasing a whole bunch of classics. And I had a representative at a time, and he was representing a whole bunch of different artists. And we all got to see the list and go, he kind of gave me a choice. He goes, here's these 5, maybe take a look at these, and I think you'll be good for this one, this one, and this one. We all got to pick 3, but the Invisible Man one, that one's floating around on the internet. That came out really nice. I really like that piece, because it just has a nice atmospheric feeling to it. I also did House of the Seven Gables. Again, it came out pretty cool, and so I still have those paintings. They float around my house. They don't hang on the walls. Everything's in the attic. So I have monsters in my attic.
Nice. So when we got up to where you were hired on to do the first cover to Goosebumps, and they had another artist doing the second book, basically seeing which style they would fit the series going forward. What were your thoughts on that?
It was so. The atmosphere behind it was, we don't know if this thing's really going to take off. No one had tried horror for the ages 7 to 11, and there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm. They were going, who knows? And that they didn't pick me, I was happy I got one, because that's how all my jobs were. You do one, and then you wait, and then we'll get you another one. So the fact I was doing one and somebody else was doing the other made no difference to me. I got one. And it wasn't like, again, everybody thinks, but there were going to be hundreds. No one thought hundreds. I think at the time they were talking 4 or 6, and he already did one, so it's down to maybe 4, maybe 5, which would be nice, but it wasn't like, this is a big deal. Anyway, the other artist's name was Jim Thiessen. Jim Thiessen is an excellent illustrator. He went on to do a whole bunch of other stuff.
He did some of the Stephen King ones.
Yes, he's a fabulous horror illustrator. So I was like, this could go either way. If they like his stuff and I like his stuff, I could see it going his way. And they liked that my stuff had a more rich colors, because I kind of took the edge off of the horror. They were worried about it being too scary. So when you see book number 2 compared to book number 1, this has got an edge that mine doesn't have. So They took the less dull knife.
Well, I will say, when in 5th grade, I was going, because we would have these things called book orders through Scholastic and everything, so I was going through, and I am a huge mythology person, and the first thing I see is this book that has a really cool looking mummy on it. And I'm like, I told my mom, I want that book. She's like, this book? Is like, yes, it's called Goosebumps, The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. I want it, because it has a mummy on the cover, and the mummy looks really cool. So she got it when the book finally came, and I read it. I said, it had number 5 on the spine. I'm like, so there must be more of these books. I read through, I was like, okay, we need to go out. And then I think by that time, I think book 7 was out, and then I pretty much got them as they were coming out, all the way through the 62 run of the original series, and then went back and picked up the few that I had already missed. And for that, I was just hooked on everything.
Well, and then what was great is they were coming out every month. So you would get it, you'd tear through it, and then it's like, oh my God, like if the book didn't come out for 6 months, we could have lost you all. But it was only, only a couple more weeks, and there's going to be a new one there, and every time, and this was so unique about Goosebumps is this isn't Harry Potter. Harry Potter stories are about Harry Potter and Harry Potter's friends, and that's all it is. It's a continuing story. Every time a new Goosebumps came out, new kids, new monster, new location, everything was fresh and new. So every adventure was cool for you guys, but it was a thrill for me because I never knew what was going to happen next. I was never, there was never oh my God, we're doing that again. It was like, wow, all right, let's go.
So from what I've read, they gave you basically a title and a little bit of info of what the book was about, and you just went on from there to get the cover.
Yep. Which to some people that's like, oh, that's hard. And actually, from artist's point of view, that's actually better. If you gave me a whole book and I read the whole book, I would feel constrained by the details I read in the book, and I would feel I got to get this in and I have to get that in. Whereas you just kind of brush stroke it for me, I just do the coolest picture I can make, and I'm not overly concerned with too much of the detail. So it helped. It really helped a lot.
Is there a cover that you did that you have like a very happy memory about?
I can put it this way, none of them I was like, I don't like this one,
Even Night in Terror Tower? Because I've heard that's your least favorite.
Well, that was more of the environment. I really do, I actually like that piece a lot, because if I didn't tell you I painted it in one sitting, you would go, that looks as good as the rest of them.
That's one thing I was amazed at, because I was like, what is wrong with it? I understand it was rushed, but I don't see anything wrong with this compared to these other covers.
Yeah, so, I mean, the only difference would have been probably I made sure I concentrated on him, because the painting lives by the character in the middle. But if I had more time, probably behind him in the hallway, there would have been more stuff going on, maybe some more stuff. It would all have been background stuff. But so, would it have made it better? Yeah, but it wouldn't have made it totally different. The feel is still there. And I got it done. And that's, again, in this business, getting it done is more important than a lot of things.
Well, I would say Ghost Speech is my favorite cover from all the books, because A Christmas Carol is my favorite novel. And I just thought of The Ghost of Christmas Future the moment I saw that book.
It does have that. I never thought of that before. I've never heard that comparison. Yeah, there's an essence of that there.
So it's funny,
except it's probably off by 6 months. We're at the beach, so yeah. Ghost of Summer.
So it was funny though, because when I read the book, I was like all excited, like, where's this Ghost of Christmas Future? Where's this Ghost of Christmas Future? There is no Ghost of Christmas Future. It was a good book, but where was the Ghost of Christmas Future? Meanwhile, like, the headless ghost was so phenomenal. I was surprised with some of the stuff R.L. Stine was able to get away with in that book.
And that was, again, that was fun. Nobody was, they weren't putting up too many, rubber edges on the corners. It was, all right, Rightstuf. Let's see where it goes. And some of the stories had some real edge to them. I always like the ones that had the twist. And I give the man, so much credit. The amount of stories that he's been able to crank out, and all of them work.
Well, it was amazing because after a while, being in high school, when we had all these required readings, so I ended up having to step back from Goosebumps. I was still collecting them for a while, and then I kind of stopped, only to learn the series was then canceled. And then several years ago, when I started teaching, and I found that students were still reading Goosebumps, I was like, "Oh, you guys still read it?" And I learned they had new books coming out and everything. I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool! So recently, I wanted to try to fill holes in my collection, finding out the collector's value of them. I'm like, what are your feelings on those?
Yeah, so it's funny too, because all right, so when Goosebumps was going on, everybody, the parents all got on board and they were buying them on a regular. So every house had boxes full of them. So the value wasn't, there wasn't a lot of value because they were literally everywhere. They could be at the laundromat, sitting at the doctor's office. So as time went on, and people would donate them or give them away, or then another set of kids would read them and just beat the hell out of them, and they weren't any good. They start to disappear, and again, everything has to do with quantity. And it's funny that now people going back trying to rebuild the collections and finding out that this one's rare and that one's rare. It's funny. I never looked at it that way. I would never think that paperbacks wouldn't have some sort of retention or value like that. But again, rarity is rarity.
Now I'm like, okay, this is the anniversary year. Hey, Scholastic, why don't you re-release the old books with the original covers and in hardcover?
Oh, I like that.
Because I'm a huge hardcover collector.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's a great idea. Yeah. Well, you gotta go to work on it. See what they say.
So after Goosebumps, what did you move on to?
So Goosebumps, when it stopped for me, I was still doing some book work, but that's when everything started to change. So the paperback market was huge because there weren't a lot of forms of entertainment. Video games were crap. It was Pong. Video, was VHS and Blockbuster. So there wasn't, that wasn't a thing. Social media didn't exist. The internet was still dial-up. Paperbacks were huge, but all that stuff started to turn on. And gaming and all alternative forms of media started to pop up. So the number of books started going down. So there was less covers available for us guys to do. So I started to do digital work. I worked for and still work for a company called Dscape. We started doing flash animation for corporate stuff, but our corporate stuff will keep you entertained. Where there's plenty of corporate stuff that won't. And so I started to do that kind of stuff. So we still do that animation type work. And that was a nice deviation from this, because at that point I had been doing it for 25 years, and it was something else to get my head wrapped around. And but the illustration business never stopped. It just wasn't the prime focus. And I still get to do plenty of covers, and they continued. Like for a while, I only did a few because people weren't looking for it, and then now the nostalgia thing is starting to roll around, and you guys are all grown up now, and you are art directors. You guys are doing stuff like this. You have podcasts. You work for ski companies. You are in bands, and all you guys are calling me up now, and all my emails start the same way. Hi, I was a huge fan when I was a kid of Goosebumps, and I have this project, and will you do it? So my old fans are now my new employers, and it's great.
Nice. What social media links can people find you at?
The best place to check it out is on Instagram. That's the one I keep the most active. It's Jacobus 1. You can search out Tim Jacobus. You can search Goosebumps artist. It'll all pop up, and that's the one that gets the artwork up the fastest. So when something's done and I'm allowed to show it, that's the first place it'll show up. I'm on all other forms of social media, but that's the best one.
any final words for our viewers?
Yeah, this, and I mention it all the time, this doesn't cease to amaze me that here we are 30 years later, and not only do you guys still remember Goosebumps, you remember it fondly, and it still has an element of cool. And a lot of things in my life, as they go by, the element of cool goes away. And I'm sure there was plenty of things you did when you were 11 that aren't cool anymore. But I'm glad that still fits into that column. It's fun to talk to you guys as adults when we talk about this, and it thrills me to death. So thank you, and thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
You bet.
Until next time, bye.